the Gauteng Health Department is in advanced stages, quote unquote, of appointing a new CEO at Rahima Moosa Mother and Child Hospital in Johannesburg. And that's after its previous CEO, Newzroom Afrika, was released from her job after it was found that she spent only 182 days at work since her appointment in January of 2021. A report by the now former health ombud, Professor Makgoba, also found that Mkabayi missed a further 98 days of work without giving a reason. For more on the story, we're this morning joined by the senior member of the Progressive Health Forum, Professor Alex van den Heever, joins us via our video link this morning. Prof, it's great to see you. Thanks very much for coming on. I suppose we'll be told that we don't understand the processes when we question when the Ombud gave that scathing report on the CEO at Rahima Moosa Hospital 2 months ago, that we're now being told that, we're on track to appointing a new CEO. Is 2 months not an inordinately long amount of time, given the multiple crises at that hospital?
Well, you would certainly want to have an interim CEO for while you're going through a fairly rigorous appointment process. So you won't want to leave that hospital leaderless. But the question of selection is an important one, because you do have to be careful who is selected. But it's unclear what the process is. And up until this point, a lot of the hospital CEOs have largely been political appointments. And if you look at Rahima Moosa, the extent to which the province actually supervised what was going on within that hospital, you will see that the province was also severely at fault in actually holding the CEO to account. So it looks as though there was a general problem. There is a general problem within the Gauteng Department of Health. But we need people of high competence in these positions, and the political process of appointment to date has resulted in very, very weak appointments, and that appears to have been tolerated by the administration.
Yeah. The Ombud also recommended that the department does address leadership and governance at the hospital, but that can be true for the provincial health department at large, right? So it's not just about the appointment of the CEO at Rahima Moosa Mother and Child, but also the very many processes that have failed the hospital to date.
Yes, so if you put in a very good CEO and they start doing their job, in some cases that will attract a sanction if they are going against political interests. That's part of the problem, is that you put in place really good people, they start doing the job properly, they start removing incompetent other political appointments, or removing people who are corrupt within supply chain management, and all of a sudden there's a backlash. So that's part of what has to be corrected at the level of the province. The person who's put in charge of this hospital must be given the authority to function, but they must be a merit-based appointment. They must be a really good appointment. And they must have nothing to do with any political party. They must have a focus on running a very complex facility and getting the job done. It doesn't make the job easier, but you certainly solve a lot of problems by having a proper captain of a ship.
Yeah, I would think it goes without saying to say that, a hospital CEO should not have any political affiliation, but we know that to not be the case. Who would this person be, Prof? Ideally and necessarily, they would also be a medical doctor.
Not necessarily. The French health system, I think, is a good example. They have a special professionalization process for hospital directors, what they call them, and they expressly prohibit people with a medical degree from actually doing that course. So their hospitals are run by professional managers with no medical degree, no underlying medical degree. It's not essential. But what you do want is somebody who understands how to manage, does have an understanding of the health context, but that's something that should be in their background, and they must have an experience of success in managing facilities, not some person who's been parachuted into a management position and has done an appalling job for 15 years. You don't appoint that person, and you should weed those people out. So really you want a person with a history of success, experience in management, qualifications in management, and in the case of healthcare, an understanding of all the key areas of general management, finance, human resources, ICT, etc., and clinical governance in the case of hospitals. So that's the kind of expertise and range you're looking at, and you want experience in those backgrounds. But what we've had to date is we've had people who are in management positions who should never be promoted or passed or moved on to another facility. We actually need people who've come up through the ranks in management, have no political affiliation, and are really professionals at their job. Until we do that, we are not going to be running these facilities properly.
Yeah. So the focus is very clearly on management. That's very interesting, because I've had conversations with senior doctors at various healthcare facilities who have decried the fact that some hospital CEOs are not don't have a medical background. But as you say, the focus is on management, and if you are a good manager, you are able to incorporate those senior doctors in the way that you manage if you don't specifically have a healthcare background.
Yeah, so what would happen quite a lot is that people who didn't have a medical background and no management experience and were appointed on a political basis into the head of a hospital is an appalling combination. What you want are people who are professionals at their job. And so what I'm saying is that the medical degree is not essential and doesn't qualify you for management.
Right.
So the management position is in itself a professional competency. So in this situation, I would say at the minimum I would have selected out anybody who doesn't have an MBA, because we don't yet have a specialized professional qualification for hospital managers in South Africa. So that's the first starting point. And you want a history of experience in the health sector. So those are kinds of important criteria. But in a selection panel, you must weed out the people who've had a history of failure. There are a lot of the people, for instance, if you've been running other Gauteng hospitals and which have been run badly, you don't want to move that person across despite the fact that they might have 10, 15 years supposed experience in managing. That's not the experience you want. You want experience with a history of success and ability to actually manage the facility and deal with all of the issues. And it's important to note that when we look now at Helen Joseph, for instance, and you see that they are having sanitation, water problems, electricity problems, and medical problems all simultaneously. There are multiple crises showing that there's been zero negative leadership in that facility for a long period of time. So you don't get to a point of crisis in a facility with good leaders. They never do that. They anticipate all of these issues. They've got backup systems for everything. They maintain everything. They know in advance, years in advance, they've prepared to keep everything ready and functioning. Bad leaders don't do that. They don't understand what the needs are, and they don't care. And we've had those people appointed. So firstly, those people don't come in to running a hospital that has now been put at the point of crisis by that kind of leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it feels almost like we can get someone from corporate South Africa, right, that we should be headhunting the kind of person that you're describing.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of hospital managers in the private sector who actually come from the public sector as well. They've tended to take the better people. And obviously you're not going to get very far if you run a private hospital badly and poorly. So at this point in time, given the sort of the historical processes of selecting people into management in the public sector, it's probably worthwhile going back to a few of those people. The question is whether they would be prepared to leave. And it's not just about salary. It's about whether you go back into a position in which you will be supported as the leader of that hospital. And that is unclear, but there are a lot of people in the private sector who probably, possibly even at the moment, some retired people who have all the credentials I've just mentioned, who could come back and try and correct what's going wrong at Rahima Moosa. But as I said, it's not the way in which things are structured at the moment. It doesn't help just to put somebody in charge of that hospital if you've got a province that doesn't support you.
Yeah.
And that's why we potentially need new governance frameworks to support hospital CEOs, good hospital CEOs going forward, and not an administration that's basically going to impose political decisions on people. Now, political, I mean nefarious political obligations on people in leader positions.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's hope the right person is appointed to this position. It is so sorely needed at Rahima Moosa Mother and Child Hospital. After many, many years, as you say, the hospital has been at a crisis point for some time now. Thanks very much for speaking to us, Prof. Alex van den Heever is with the Progressive Health Forum. And, of course, we'll be keeping a close eye on the appointment of the CEO there.